Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining in once again. Common questions, good answers. We're here answering your questions. And today I'm going to be talking about studying the Bible. I got a question, how to study, read, and teach the Bible. But I want to key in on just one thing, how to study the Bible. Because I know, we sit in church, we hear the pastor say that we should read our Bibles, but sometimes it doesn't always happen. But when we do, we want to understand what we're reading. And I think so many people, they're told, hey, go read the Bible. Then when they read it, they don't have understanding of what they're reading. And so I wanted to help you out today with a couple tips that I really believe will increase your understanding and your learning of the Bible and of the Word of God. In 2 Timothy, it makes mention of rightly dividing the word of truth. So that must mean that if we can rightly divide the word of truth, then there is an incorrect way also to interpret the Bible or the word of truth. Every book in the Bible is conditioned by the time, the language, and the culture in which it was originally written in. So I want to give you three C's to understanding and studying the Bible. Number one is context. You always have to read the Bible in context. You're asking the questions, who is speaking? Who's the author? Where are they? What's happening? Who is he speaking to? Is this being written in response to something? Is this being written to God? Is this being written as instructions to men? You got to have the context to really understand really the fullness of the Word of God. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew. The New Testament was written in Greek. And, they had different customs and different things and different cultural norms. They lived in an agrarian society where it was an agriculture-based society. So when you saw Jesus talking about sowing and reaping, comparing things to farming and to yielding crops, he was talking like that because that's what the society understood. And so we have to take in context that he is making mention of these things in order to better their understanding. Sometimes it's a correctional, sometimes it's exhortation, sometimes it's information or wisdom. So we have to understand those things, and that'll give us a better framework for understanding the Word of God. It's like if your friend wrote a letter to you and they were really upset, but you had no idea what they're talking about because you hadn't talked to this friend in a year, then you'd be kind of confused as to what this letter's about and what they're even upset about. However, if they gave you some backstory and some understanding as far as the context, where they're coming from, what brought this on, what was the catalyst of this letter, and maybe how they viewed their last interaction with you, then that would better help you understand the letter. The Bible's the same way. And so when we get some context, then we can better understand God's words to us. So the second C is concepts. Concepts are asking, what is the overall message that is trying to be communicated either through this chapter or through the entire book altogether? Like, for example, the books of Corinthians were written by the Apostle Paul in order to speak back to the church that he had established in his second missionary journey. Now, this church was going through some issues. They were battling against worldliness. And so the Apostle Paul was coming to combat the worldliness that was trying to creep in to that church that he established in Corinth. So you'll see a lot of instruction being given for daily living and how to live separate. So in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, where he starts to talk about don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers and what fellowship does light have with darkness, he is trying to combat worldliness altogether. He's trying to help them as a church remain separate from the world. Now, when he uses that phrase unequally yoked, for us, in normal everyday life, we don't use the word yoked together. However, that was once again a term because of the agrarian society and because of their agricultural culture. Then they used the yoke as a way of putting it on oxen, and they would put it on an oxen and they can plow through the field. But the oxen had to be of same size and of same strength to be able to plow together, or else one would plow more than the other and then they would start to kind of go around in circles. And so he's using this as an example because they understand what that means. The last C is core message. What is the core message that is being brought across to us? What is the core message that we are supposed to get up and walk away with? What is God really trying to say through this text, even to us 2,000 years later? I said earlier that the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, New Testament was written in Greek, and I am a big believer in understanding what those original texts said, because sometimes as years have gone by, we translate the Bible, but sometimes the translations change the meaning just a little bit. I like to give the example of, if you know Spanish, and if you've ever learned Spanish, that you know when I say, me gusta agua, I like water. That might not be all the way correct. It might be me gusta al agua, but you understand what I'm saying. That says that, hey, I like water, but actually the literal translation of that is the water is pleasing to me. You know, we understand what's being communicated. We understand what's being said. We say, oh, it means the same thing. But sometimes as you go through the scriptures and you look at some of the original texts of what was being communicated, it doesn't mean the exact same thing as what we might read in a common English Bible nowadays. So I really believe it can be very helpful to see and go back and look at what some of those original texts said to give a deeper meaning, maybe to a phrase or to a word. It helps inspire your thinking. One great tool that I use to do this, and it's an online tool, it's called BibleHub.com. I have the link down in my description, but if you check out BibleHub.com, great website that has a lot of free resources, but it'll give you the original Greek and the original Hebrew text, and you can search verse by verse and see the breakdown of all the words and what they originally meant and which words were originally used, and that'll convey a different meaning to you. Now, when you study the Bible, you always want to ask this question: how does all this translate back to me in my life? How does this connect with me in my life? Because the Bible is not just something that we should read for literature, but it's something that we should apply to our everyday lives, because the Bible was written as a guidebook for us, as an owner's manual for us, as we are God's product and we are God's creation. He didn't leave us alone. He gave us a guide that shows us who He is, who we are in Him, and everything that Jesus died to provide us with. Now, I want to give you some helpful tools: better growing, better learning, and better studying of the Word of God. The first one I mentioned, BibleHub.com, has great parallel references. Another great resource to really understand the context of the different books of the Bible is a YouTube channel called The Bible Project. It's a great vehicle for understanding. I've used it myself, but they really give these short videos to give you a full understanding of what the context was for this book of the Bible to be written, you know, what inspired it, and now what do the different passages mean and how do they link back to the overall story of God and of Jesus. Another tool is openbible.info, and I have the links below. Openbible.info is a great topical Bible. So if you want to know about wisdom, you can type the word wisdom and click go, and it'll bring up all the scriptures on wisdom, or the scriptures even that refer to wisdom or peace or love, or whatever it might be. I have something else that I want to recommend to you. I want to recommend a book read. It's called How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth by Gordon D. Fee and Douglas Stewart. And this is a great book. I actually came across this while I was in the School of Theology at Oral Roberts University. How to read the Bible for all it's worth. This is a good tool because it really helps break down how to get all that you can from the Bible. It's a great read, so check it out. Also, something that you want to consider is different translations and different versions of the Bible. You have some translations that are more literal, such as King James Version. Then you have some translations of the Bible that are more figurative. They are paraphrased versions, such as the New Living Translation. It goes more thought for thought instead of more literal word for word. So I want to continue to encourage you, read your word, study your word, get all you can from your word. If you remember the 3 C's, context, concepts, core message, you'll be good to go, and you'll be able to understand really what the Word of God is saying to you. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I really hope that this blessed you. If you really like it, make sure to share it with somebody else and hit the little subscribe button right there below, and you won't miss any of the videos that I put out giving you good answers to common questions. And no matter what goes on, remember this: that the best is yet to come.